All right. We are live with the 23rd episode of the
Let's Go podcast. We got a fun, controversial podcast. We got two super fun, loud, and entertaining guests. Although from the last time I had Raice on, you may not think so. But we have the real Raice with us, along with Yoseph Grossman making his debut on the HSL podcast. It's about time. You would think a guy with his talent and his character to make a earlier debut, but we finally have him on. And we also have a very, very special sponsor for our podcast today before we move on. David, why don't you tell us a little bit about the sponsor?
So we all know Addictive Ads very, very well. Great friend of the podcast. Addictive Ads, a great friend of the podcast, great friend of the HSL. Addictive Ads has a new venture called AdMrt. What is AdMrt? So it's an online marketplace where hosts and event coordinators can meet with businesses who want to advertise with them. So you create your ad host profile on AdMrt. That could be if you have a show, you have a podcast, you have an event, that you show off your views and your influence. Like a podcast like this that has between 50 and 75,000 views a week would be very influential. And then the brands will then be able to communicate directly with you to set up their advertising on your show. No middlemen, no endless pitching, just you and the brands that want to work with you. And if we know one thing about Addictive Ads, he's very driven, he's very successful, and I'm sure AdMrt will be a great success as well. And we thank him for their sponsorship of the podcast. So let's get down to business. We have here two legendary players. Actually, I don't know if they're legendary yet. People talk a whole lot about you, but you're still kind of young. Yoseph Grossman is new to the podcast. I met him in Muncie, Haverstraw a couple of weeks ago. Thank you for coming on.
Pleasure to be here.
So
the reason why it took so long is because I had to. The proportions have to make sense. The number of games that I played in HSL has to be proportioned to the number of times that I show up.
Listen. You qualified for the playoffs, and you showed up at the first two games of the championships.
But I show up when it matters. That's the important thing.
Well, you missed the third game of the championship.
Yeah, I mean 3 weeks in a row. Coming in, driving into the 5 towns from Muncie 3 weeks in a row on Sunday morning was not.
West Hempstead, not 5 towns. West Hempstead.
Sorry. I forgot we played on the good field.
Well, but I thought you bring one of your kids with you, so I thought you get credit with your wife.
I bring 3 kids with me when I come.
And that was not enough to satisfy your other half?
No. No.
I hope she's not watching.
Oh, definitely will be watching. I'll make sure to play this part for her.
Well, we definitely appreciate the dedication. And we have Mr. Raice, who has to be the most popular man in the world. I don't know what it is. Everybody I talk to, they say.
After Avi Edelman.
After Avi Edelman.
Of course. Avi Edelman is going to take credit for this.
He
always does.
By the RSK tournament, Ellie and I are going back and forth as to how who here at the RSK tournament, how many people know, who knows, how do I say it? What's the word I'm looking for? How many people at the tournament know the tournament? Ellie, help me out.
Riveting
Who knows more people at the tournament? I don't know. I'm not sure.
No, the opposite. How many?
Who is known by more people?
Yes, who's known by more people at the tournament? And the clear answer was me. I was so much more popular walking around.
But here's the difference between you and Raice, and Glenn Zuckerman is going to be joining us in a minute. Difference is when I tell people I know Avi Edelman, they say, "Oh, he's that guy who messaged me like 16 times for the Chavetzheim raffle." And when I mention Raice, they're like, "Oh, he is the coolest guy. You got to get to know him." So I'm trying to find out what that's all about. Hopefully, I'll be zoche to meet with you in person one day. But most importantly, you guys, what's that?
Dave, the HSL Fall League, King Ventures is making a return to the HSL Fall League. Dave, you're gonna be in the HSL Fall League.
Are Raice and Grossman playing?
Raice is Grossman. Are you playing?
You ask difficult questions. I highly doubt it.
Stop it. You'll be there.
No, probably not.
The question is, how much jewelry does it take to secure a fall softball season?
And how much I'm willing to do that. I mean, we'll have to talk about this later about my feelings on the quality of the HSL.
Okay, yeah, we're going to get there. So, to those who don't know, Raice and Yosef Grossman won in dramatic fashion the King Ventures Championship. There was a very controversial slide that Glenn Zuckerman is going to come on to talk about. But before he gets here, Yosef, let's start with you. You've had a long history in softball around the tri-state Jewish area. Why don't you give us a little bit of an overview of your experience?
So I went to the mountains every year growing up as a kid. My team, our team was terrible, as most teams in the OPBL were at that time. And
What
they
was the
had
name
a
of your
spot,
team?
Twin Bridge Tigers. And they had a spot open, so at second base. So I basically told them, I'm better than no one, so let me play second base. So I was either 13 or 14 years old. I don't remember. Could feel really, really well, but hitting was a major problem. And I distinctly remember being down for playing for the division. At that point, there was no championship. You just won by division. Playing for the championship, I come up to bat. I had just gotten out probably 6 or 7 times in a row. And our pitcher, what's his name? Abramson, one of the Abramsons, says to me,
Joel Abramson?
No.
Years ago.
His older brother. What? I can't remember. Huey Abramson.
Oh, Usher Abramson, like the Usher Abramson who was in Romu way back in the day, who like hits threes.
Yep.
Wow, he was like
almost. There's a lot of Romu guys there. Baruch Mendelowitz, Mayor Shatner.
Yeah.
Very cool. Of those guys. Anyhow, so I distinctly remember him telling me, Grossman, just get a freaking hit and hit a ground rule double on the next pitch. And at that point, I realized, hitting is not that difficult. And so from there, I only played summers. I basically only played OBBL till...
How old were you then?
I was 14. So till I was about 17, 18 years old, then Naftali Solomon picked me up to play for his Teaneck team, which started at like 7:30 in the morning for some reason. So I started playing there occasionally. And then I was playing football in Muncie, and one of the guys in Muncie picked me up for a terrible team in Muncie. And then I generated controversy in the Muncie softball league for a while. And then Ellie picks me up wherever he goes, basically.
How do you generate controversy?
Let's save that for after they have their little tussle with Mr. Glenn Zuckerman. Glenn, thank you for coming on to defend not just defend the honor of the Bombers, but to defend good officiating everywhere. Sticking up for the rules and what's really supposed to be. So, Glenn, when should I pull up the slides?
No, I just want to start by saying that I was asked to come on here to discuss the slide rule and the issue that's still lingering this many weeks later. So obviously it's a controversial issue. No hard feelings. We lost. I don't want anyone to think this is a sore loser situation. But it dawned on me about a minute ago that I've been practicing law for about 27 years. A lot of my classmates have defended Trump, have argued before the Supreme Court, and I'm arguing a slide rule in Hillcrest softball. So my life really is pathetic. But that said, yes, I'm here to prove to everybody listening that although it was a very close call, it was not a call that should have been made.
Glenn, before we continue, just so you know, the HSL, based on the outcome of this conversation, may or may not decide to put an asterisk on the 2024 King Ventures Championship. So
be on the trophies as well, or
we're gonna call back. We're gonna recall all the trophies, have an asterisk at it. Actually, we might have like the bat sawed off a little bit on the trophy.
Don't worry, they'll break. We won last year. Those bats break in about 2 minutes, so don't worry about it.
I don't know if you saw how angry Avi was that they didn't win game 2 because that meant he had to schlep the trophies back to his car. I don't think he's recalling any trophies.
Yeah, Dave, maybe if the co-commissioner would have been at the championships, maybe I wouldn't have been schlepping all that myself.
The co-commissioner was at Bear Mountain with his wife and his son. So, Glenn, let's get right into it. Can you paint the scene for us, for our audience? What took place in the play, the implications, and then
sure, absolutely.
Let's get into the role. Also, can you lower your screen a tiny bit so we could see your mouth? There, we want that whole.
You got me. Okay, cool. Okay,
want that whole handsome face.
Thank you. So, let's set the scene. It is top of the 6th inning, top of the 7th inning. My bad. Bottom 6. It's bottom 6. I lit off the inning with a single. Hoffman hits a triple, and we have man on third. Nobody out. They proceed to get a short fly ball. 1 out. There's a walk, 1st and 3rd, 1 out, and Shia comes to the plate. Shia is arguably one of the faster runners in the league. Unfortunately, didn't really come through in the clutch in that situation. He usually does. And he hits a 2-hopper to short. Now, Donnie Perlman's the pinch runner or the runner at first base. And Donnie's one of the fastest guys on our team. It's a 2-hopper to short. Shortstop flips it to Gesentner at second base. And I want to stop the story right there. I play a lot of second base. A lot of people here know that a second baseman taking that throw from the shortstop comes through the bag, hits the bag with his foot as he catches it, and creates a throwing lane for himself, so he's not throwing into the runner. A lot of things could have happened to a throw when the runner's coming down. The runner could have just stopped, stood still, gives himself up, and the throw goes off his head. So you, as a fielder, you want to come through the bag and make a throwing lane to first. But that's not what Gesentner did. This guy's an ox. I play with him in the night league. He is not afraid of contact. He's not afraid of injury. And he stood on that bag like he owned it. And we can pull up Exhibit A, maybe, guys?
Yes. Which is Exhibit A?
Exhibit A is the picture.
Okay, hold on.
Okay. You can see I spent a lot of time preparing for the Supreme Court argument here.
I was hoping you were going to sound like the ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
Yeah. Well, the fact of the matter is that Gesentner stood literally on the bag, catches the ball before Donnie gets there, and Donnie's coming in ablazing. I mean, he is coming hard. Now, is it true that Donnie slid a little bit late? Yes, 100%. No argument there. There is no rule as to when a slide has to start. There's actually only a rule. There's only a rule as to where the slide has to end. So in other words, you can slide through the base as long as you maintain contact with the base. That's considered a legal slide. He started his slide about 1 foot later than maybe what you normally would see. But as you can see right there, if you zoom in, Gesentner has his right foot on the base and his left foot is throwing towards first, stepping towards first.
Dave, why don't you zoom in?
Zoom in. Is it being zoomed in right now?
No.
Not sure if I know how to do that.
You did it before before we had got on.
Yeah, I know. I remember.
Bottom right of the screen, the magnifying glass.
Now,
say it again.
I
have minimize. Right now, I have 2 buttons. I have minimize and maximize. Not sure.
I think anyone who's watching can just zoom in on their own. I believe. Like I can do it on my screen.
Tell
right
me
now.
if this helps. Does that help?
No.
Okay.
I
hold
think
on.
any listener can just zoom in on their own. I don't think you have to do it.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, but you just got it off the screen.
Yeah. Just give me 1 more second. I was just trying one other way.
Now I'll just talk as you guys are thinking. Now, if Gesentner catches the ball, takes a hop step towards third and throws, there is no contact. He makes the throw. By the way, Shia beats it out because he's fast. It's tough to turn a double play against Shia. I don't care who you are. That notwithstanding, Gesentner decided.
Yeah.
It's good. We can see it. He's literally, his right foot is on the base. Sorry, his right foot's on the base, and his left foot is stepping towards first as he's making the throw. The ball is still in his hands. Donnie's sliding in right there. Now, if Donnie decided to do a pop-up slide, that's still considered a slide. If Donnie decides to slide through the base and his hand leans back and touches the base, that's a legal slide. What Donnie can't do is he can't barrel him over. He can't slide to the right or left of the base to take the guy out, anticipating that he's going to try to make that throw, as I said earlier. So what Donnie did is within the bounds of legal in terms of a slide. I should point out that I checked. There is no rule in ASA softball that defines a slide, that says that you have to slide 3 feet or 5 feet before the base. That's all Dom made up BS. What happened here is he slid a little bit later than what you would normally see. Those bases are mounted. Gesentner decided to take the shot because he wanted to get the throw as quickly as possible. Didn't want to waste a split second. To his credit, he was tough and he took it. His throw sailed about 100 feet over the fence. And Dom, you can see on the right hand of the screen. Now, I'm going to ask you guys a question. This is a very straight up question. Has there been contact made in this picture yet?
No.
No. Look at Dom on the right side. His hand's already up making the call. Okay,
Yeah,
Don
but he
was
might
calling
be
it.
calling him
Don
out
was
at second.
Don was calling this call on Friday before the game started. Okay, now listen. That's the league we're in, and we should expect craziness, and we got it. But this is a huge play and a huge part of the game. And if you're going to make this call in the first inning, whatever, you live with it. In the sixth inning, with an insurance run coming in from third on even just the force, but not the double play, that's a huge second run. In fact, Avi, in his announcement of the play, correctly pointed out before the play happened, this is a huge run coming from third. He noted that extra run really meant everything. I mean, Steve was pitching strong. A pitcher pitching with a 2-run lead has a much different mindset than a 1-run lead. As it was, Steve walked a couple of guys in a tight game in that next inning. Would have been a totally different inning if this play was called like a normal situation. Now, if you can just go quickly to Exhibit B, I know that I only have a few more minutes before you guys want to rebut, but Exhibit B comes out of an umpire's manual because obviously the rule is designed to avoid injury. And you should know that this is not an ASA rule, but those of us who were on the captain's meeting, I know I was, Avi was, right? Who else was on? Any of you guys on? You were on there. Do you remember that this conversation came up because I raised it, and it was referencing plays at the plate where we said you can't barrel the catcher over, and so the rule was very, very loosely you have to slide or give yourself up. So there was never a rule that said you have to slide 7 feet before the bag, 4 feet before the bag, early, late. You have to slide or give yourself up. I think everybody here would say that Donnie slid. It's just that he slid maybe a split second too late by a perfect slide standard. But here, if you look at, and this is important, this is not the human body.
What is this from, Glenn?
This is from an umpire's handbook. And this is all that was designed to, this is baseball, but softball. So it's designed to avoid injury. And if you guys zoom in here, the middle white lane and second base, that lane is legal slide lane. Any contact that's made in the gray area, right or left, that's considered an illegal slide because you are sliding with the intention of taking the fielder out. But sliding to the base and that lane is 1,000% legal and encouraged. And if you scroll down, okay, I'm going to read it to everybody here.
For a sec. This is unbelievable that they mentioned Chase Utley in this slide over here. It's really funny.
Yes, I mean that was an aggressive slide. But let me read from the bottom here. I feel like I'm a fourth grade teacher. But before going on, let's debunk. You guys all know what debunk means, right? A common misconception about slide plays in general, and the forced play slide rule in particular. There is no requirement that a player must slide. So there's no requirement in the general rule book, but there is a house rule that says you have to slide or give yourself up. So for anyone to say that this was not a slide by Donnie is obviously twisting. He clearly slid. If he slid early and then stood up, that'd be a pop-up slide. That's a slide too. He clearly slid. And obviously, if Gesendner had stepped through the bag, there would have been no contact whatsoever. Zero. So for those reasons, I'm going to rest my case here and let you guys talk.
So I'll Ellie, if you don't mind, I'll go first.
Go for it.
Because I think you're going to have more MLB precedent than I will. I just have some basic stuff. Number one is the situational awareness. If you know that a runner is coming home from third, don't slide to begin with. Slow down, get in the way of the throw, and make sure that it doesn't happen. The slide there doesn't make any sense to me, and that has nothing to do with the rule. It's just that I'm talking about what the play that I would have made. I would have gone in as big as I could, stayed high as long as I could, prevent the double play from happening, and let the run come in. So that's just an aside.
What if Gesendner was stepping in with his throw and he took you out without you hitting him? He hit you.
Then that's on him. I'm saying
no. Don makes that call also.
No, I'm saying I'm slowing down there. I'm staying as big as I can. If I get hit by the ball, I get hit by the ball. I don't really care. But I'm blocking that throwing lane if I can. The Aaron Judge SWAT. That's what I'm trying to do. More importantly is the intent, because if you look at the timing, yes, on that screenshot, yes, you can see that there's maybe you can interpret the rule that he was, that the call wasn't necessarily the best call and all that. But if you look at the full context of the video, the transfers already happened at second base. I played second base for years as well. And once that transfer happens, the runner should be giving themselves up. He slid late with intent to hit him. You can clearly see it. There's no other reason for him to slide like that, right? He was out. And that's why, by the way, to one of your later points, that's why Dom has his hand up. He's out at second base. Dom is making the call at second base. He's out at second base. Later, he makes the call that the interference means that the runner is out at first. So that's not what he's calling. He's not calling interference. He's calling him out at second. And the other thing was the slide or avoid rule, right? The intent of that rule is, like you said, to prevent injury. If your slide is to not necessarily injure a guy, but to generate contact and break up the throw, it doesn't really matter if you had the safe lane or not. His intent was to break up the play. It's very clear from the way he slid in. Nobody actually slides like that, especially when they're already out.
I want continue. If you were
That's all I got.
I wanted to interrupt. I was actually curious about something. There obviously is a technicality of the rule and what's legal and what's not legal. Where does umpire discretion come into play with these slides? That's something I was curious, because whether or not the umpire's discretion is totally horrible or totally correct, that's an argument to be made. But where does umpire discretion come into play when you're dealing with slides like these? Meaning, you can have the technicality of the rule, you could have the, whether it's right or wrong, but in the moment for an umpire, where does that umpire's discretion of, I don't care what the rule says, in my opinion, that was a dirty slide, it was intended to take out the runner, he's out. So I don't know, Glenn, I don't know if you know, or Yoseph, or Philly, you know.
I think the best referees in sports are the ones that you don't even realize they're there, and they're not making themselves bigger than the game. If Dom had called, Yossi Kaufman out of the batter's box when he got his single, let's just say in the seventh inning or whatever it was, you would have said, "Oh, it's in his discretion." He thought that he was standing outside the batter's box, but we would all say, "What are you, out of your mind? Who makes that call in that situation?" So the discretion comes into play, but only to a point. I mean, at the end of the day, is this a clear-cut rule or is it not? And I think at the very least, we all agree that this is a close call. It's subject to interpretation. I definitely think Donnie was coming in hard. He was coming in to try to break up the play. I agree with you 1,000%. I think Gesentner really decided to stay in that lane, not to because he wanted contact, but rather because he wanted to get the ball over there as quickly as he possibly could. And had he done it the way most second basemen who don't want to get injured do it, there would have been no contact whatsoever.
Yeah, he's a hockey player though. You can't factor any of that in. He's looking for contact.
Correct.
So can we narrow down the point of the argument between Yosef and Glenn and Ellie? I don't know if you have what to. Actually, first let's hear Ellie. Do you have anything to add?
I'll let me jump in here, Ellie, because I've been playing softball with you now for a while, and you're one of the most aggressive runners out there. I mean, not physically, but just you take.
I've had a lot of guys fielder's choice me in the last over the last 6 months. I've definitely had a lot of opportunities where I'm sliding to second base, which I do notice. Actually, I do the hand up thing, even though I don't try to. It's really is just something that happens. So if anyone thinks Aaron Judge was blocking that ball, he wasn't. I could show you some videos of me sliding without thinking, and I'm just putting the hand up. Anyway, it's a balance thing.
But if Dom made that call on you, is that considered interference?
It shouldn't be, but it should never be an interference call when a guy's sliding and his hand goes. But the thing is, when I see Perlman
your hand's up, you're interfering.
It's true. You're right. Potentially, it could be called. I wouldn't think that. I hope it wouldn't, but it probably would be called because it looks obvious.
Exactly.
But same thing with Perlman's slide. When people are able to point out before the play that, hey, watch out at second base. This guy's coming in hard and he's going to try to take our guy out. It makes it easy when you just stand there and take it, I mean, like it's an easy call because we all know it's coming.
Let me ask you a quick question though. It's a simple question. If the play was slower to develop and it was 1,000% clear that Shia was going to beat out the throw at first, is it still interference?
Well, I don't know if it was 1,000% clear that he was going to break, because if Gestetner holds his ground there, and which he's a pretty quick turn, he's got a good arm, it would have been close. That batter's box was not the best at that point.
My point is that there's a lot of ifs in that scenario, but the reality is that one of the things that Dom has to think about when he calls the interference is, would that play have been made successfully?
Right.
But I don't think Dom
Sure.
processed that. I think
I'll
Dom,
address
Dom
the point.
he pulled up to the parking lot and his arm was already up making the call.
I'll address that point, and again, just some background. Again, Ellie, you and Yoseph, I don't know if you guys really don't have much experience with Dom at all, right? I mean, before,
A few times already now.
Okay, but so as again, I want to preface this by saying, as respected as Dom is, which he is, or many people in the Jewish world, whether it's five-town softball or football, he is known for getting himself involved in a lot of these big controversial plays. So from the Bombers' perspective, it's just another one of those Dom's at it again type things. Again, with all respect, everyone respects Dom. They love Dom. He does a lot of good stuff for the Jewish softball world. So just want to say that. To the point Glenn just brought up, it's funny. I was actually playing against Steve last night in the semis. Took a heartbreaking game 2 loss. We're going to game 3. So I was speaking to Steve, and I actually don't really think it matters. I think from a umpire's perspective, I don't. First of all, in the moment, I think it's almost impossible for Dom to make that judgment decision as to whether or not the guy would have been at first, regardless. But even if you broke it down and you sorted it up, and you 1,000% the guy was going to come to first base clean, I don't think that would affect the call at second. Meaning, if it's not within the rules, then it should be out regardless. If it's technically within the rules, I don't know if umpire's discretion would get overridden by the fact that he for sure would have been safe at first.
Well,
I don't know.
Also,
Could be.
it's pretty clear that when he made the call, it was about to play at second. The runner going to first is irrelevant. I think that's why we discussed this by the championship celebration. But Gusentner was talking about how him throwing the ball was probably the kicker there. Because of how that ball came out of his hand, it was pretty clear that the throw was interfered with. Now, whether it was exaggerated or not is irrelevant. The point is that it looked. So I'm saying, as far as Dom is concerned, he has to make that call because that throw went 100 feet over the fence.
Yeah, which shows you how bang of a play it was. But again, sure, if you go back to the picture, you see that his ball still in his hand. He's stepping into the runner's lane in front of the base where the runner's supposed to be. So the question I have for you guys is very simple: who created the contact there?
Right, and we'll attach the video, by the way, to this podcast, so we get the full. The picture definitely does look like it's he's within the rules, but we'll definitely attach the video as well for everyone to see the.
Well, that's why I said you need the video for context.
I was talking to Moshe Zinn yesterday at the game, and Moshe was like, "How did I not see this?" So he got us with the video. I'm like, "Don't worry," and we're up 2-0 in the bottom 6. We're cruising along. I'm like, "Don't worry, after the game I'll show you." And next thing we know, they put up 3 runs, we lose 3-2, and like that video was never showed. So there are guys who are
So for our viewers' sake, let's see if we can narrow down the argument. Let's take Dom's big personality out of it for a minute, which I tend to agree with, especially because he made. I have my own 2 cents. I hope Dom doesn't watch this. It's just that Dom made the same exact call in the championship game 5 years ago, and I don't think I've ever been in a game, period, where that was called. Maybe you guys have. And now it's in 2 HSL championships 5 years apart, which is just interesting. Actually, before we go on, has anybody been in a game with a runner's interference called and that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
A few times. If you play with
but in those
younger
situations,
guys and more aggressive runners.
But in those situations, I'm sorry.
If you play with younger guys and more aggressive runners, this tends to happen more frequently, just because contact happens more regular, especially, and I know we're going to talk about this later in terms of OVBL, but you have these fungal colony fields. They're kind of all over the place. You could have all kinds of slides that happen, and it happens more frequently than you think.
Most of those aren't slides. They're usually takeout barrel checks.
Yeah, we're not going to assume that the athletes of the OBBL are able to slide. Let's be real.
Well, let me ask you about that, Glenn, actually, because some of the people who are sending me screenshots were showing me how Donnie ends up in like what you keep calling a barrel position, using that as some evidence.
Have you seen Gusentner? The guy is an ox. Donnie's outweighed by 80 pounds. What do you think is going to happen?
So what's the question about the barrel?
No, my point is if a guy comes in, doesn't slide, is on his feet, and comes in, just ducks down and takes the guy out, that's an illegal slide. So this is really what it boils down to. Are we really going to be that tech? Are we really going to be? Are we really going to be that? Are we really going to be that technical that we're going to hold our players who are amateur players to a standard where they have to slide 3 feet away from the base and end their slide as they're getting to the base. And that's the standard for what's considered a legal slide, because that's ridiculous. And anyone who's an aggressive player knows that, you're going into your slide. It depends on how your steps, your footwork are, but you could slide 3 feet away, 5 feet away, 1 foot away. There's no rhyme or reason to when the slide actually starts.
But I'm confused. According to what you sent us, it doesn't matter when the slide starts as long as you're in that white zone, right?
And sliding.
That's questionable.
So you could do it right up until you could do it an inch before the base.
Well, I mean, again, an inch is not really a slide, because a slide you got to get down, and Donnie's getting down right there. Again, contact hasn't been made. You see, he's down.
Ellie, you said that's questionable. What's questionable?
I don't know. I was saying, well, also even you could see a lot when dirt flies up on the video. I mean, you could see when he makes contact. The bases were not mounted in the ground there at that field, so the base flew wherever it went. I don't know if it stayed there or what, because maybe Sentner was on it, but it just didn't. Meaning, when the bases are sliding around like that, they're not mounted, nailed into the ground. There's almost no way to make a play like that. Like, the guy slides into a spot. You don't know if he slid 4 feet past the base. We don't even know, because the base moves. Everything's moving on that play. Stetner's going flying. He's going flying. There's a pile over there. It's really, I don't know. It's just.
I think we can all agree on the following point. It's a really close call.
Yeah.
And I just think that in a situation like that, because I know I got some heat for saying this, but in a situation like that, you better be sure of making that call. That's a huge, huge call. It's almost like somebody leaving early from third base on a fly ball where a guy makes a diving catch over their shoulder, like 300 feet away from home plate, and you say the runner left early from third. You know what I'm talking about?
I might know what you're talking about, Glenn.
Ellie, did this come up? Didn't this come up last night?
This may have happened last night.
Who made the call?
Who do you think?
Yours truly.
Dom DeRosa?
It was definitely a
What do you mean,
questionable call.
That's my question.
Wait, Dom made the call?
I was surprised that they even appealed it, to be honest.
Yes, Dave. Dom made the call.
Okay.
You always appeal it.
Okay, got it.
You gotta know your umpire.
Yeah, right.
So
that's,
there's actually.
by the way,
website.
that plays into this a lot, and that's why it was basically handed to him on a silver platter. Hey, Perlman loves the slide
I want to
link.
spell it out.
Stowers and Stetner both went over them before that play.
So it's funny. There's two angles to that argument, by the way, because last night I was playing, someone came over me and told me the argument I heard, which I think what Ellie's trying to say, which makes sense to an extent, is you got to know the situation, you got to know the umpire, and I think earlier in the game he did a very similar slide, maybe not as aggressive, maybe a little bit more aggressive. I don't remember. And when you're coming in that hard, sort of to Yosef's point, like. There are a lot of other ways of getting in the way of the throw than sliding in like that and making it look like the most aggressive, physical, play in the world, giving the umpire the biggest green light to call that play. And that's one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it really is that, Dom was told before the play, look out for that slide. So, like, in Dom's head already, he has built in, like, anything close, I'm going to make that call. So I guess the Glenn's point is, like, you can't really, like that's sort of feeding into the Domness of, the moment, everyone, like I said, the ability to make that call.
I think it's important to note that it's a composite of everything. It's knowing the guy who's running from first is a very aggressive runner who's played a little bit dirty over the course of, the course of the game. You have the situation, runners on first and third with only one out. You have the umpire who, you have to know what's going on. And you have the second baseman who, let's be real, he's not exactly the most nimble guy. You can't really expect him to be coming across from behind if you look where he was before the play began, right? For him to be coming across towards third base to come receive the play and then hop out of the way, it's just not realistic for a guy like Stetner to do that. He's going to stand in and make the throw because that's the way he plays the game. So I think it's a composite of all those things together that makes it, I guess we'll call it an understandable call. You don't have to necessarily say it was a great call, but the call certainly didn't seem to be out of line.
Yeah, but I'm gonna counter that with the following. I'm thinking back to the Reggie Jackson play in the World Series against the Dodgers in '77 or whatever it was, where he was caught in a rundown and he basically like stuck his ass out and and the ball ricocheted off of him and went into the outfield. You're all probably too young to remember that, but
I don't know the play, but I do like
look
this
it
kind of
up.
history. Yeah,
Look it up.
I've done stuff like that.
But Grossman mentions, but Grossman mentioned something earlier that is standing out at me. If let's just say Donnie was running in and he just stood still, got in the throwing lane, gets sent there, throws the ball, and it hits off Donnie's head, or his follow through hits off Donnie's head. Guess what? Dom's making that call also, because here's the reason why.
I don't know about.
Here's the reason why. Because there's no clear definition of slide or give yourself up, and maybe we needed to make that clarification for next year. But how do you define give yourself up? If he just stood there and didn't make contact and got in the throwing lane, he's giving himself up, right?
It's a great call.
But Dom calls that interference.
I've seen that a million times, even when guys try to avoid contact and they avoid second base, they're going to the right, but then the second baseman does a pivot towards that way, and then they run into each other. Then what do you call? I've seen it happen.
Well, the umpire rule book that I just showed you, said that's considered interference because that's not your lane.
Now, one question for you guys: does this?
Yeah.
Is the play at first? How relevant is the play at first base? The impending play at first base to the call at second base? Is it totally irrelevant?
Irrelevant.
Yeah.
I think
I'm not
irrelevant.
I'm not so sure it's irrelevant. Hypothetically, Donnie trips, and the shortstop bobbles the ball. Right now, Donnie gets up, starts running to second base, and the play happens exactly as it does. She is already down the first base line. It's not interference at that point.
Well, it's only if there's a play to be interfered with. That's
exactly.
He would be called out, but it is possible they would call the runner out because then, again, it's about intent. If he's clearly intending to interfere with the play, regardless of the result, then the rule book says that the result of an interference play is an out.
Yeah, I just think it's obviously, unfortunately, that's a little discretionary, so we can't really hypothesize about it. But the reality is that, and I still go back to this, is that it's an impactful point of the game. It's a very, very tough call to make, and an umpire who's trying to remain, on this out of the picture doesn't make that call.
Okay, now
before the next step, I just want to point out a very big, something that you don't find it too often, that there's a rule that Ariel Cohn, the president, misses in his rule book. And this is one of the biggest takeaways I'm taking, is we might have just found something that Ariel Cohn failed to include. That rule book has gotten everything in there. Anything you could possibly think of is in the Ariel Cohn rule book. But no longer. We have discovered a new rule that Ariel has, and I guarantee you we're going to be getting messages from Ariel Cohn saying, nope, it's in there in subcategory B37 somewhere. It could be, but from my understanding, we don't have a slide rule in there.
Glenn, before we let you go, a couple of things. First of all, did we miss any element of this play that we didn't cover? Because there's a good chance Adam Hoffman or Steve will post something like, hey, Glenn forgot to mention this or that, and Yosef's an idiot, and he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about.
I all I can say is that, some of these guys here on the podcast today and many of the others in the league have studied Gemara for a lot of years in yeshiva. I studied the softball rule book, and I'm telling you that there is no rule that covers this, not in Ariel's rule book, but in any rule book that defines what is a slide. And for Dom to say last night that the rule is that you have to slide 3 feet from the bag just tells you the whole story. It's complete ridiculousness that he thinks that there's a rule that says that a slide has to start a certain number of feet.
Last night?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I will say we are not the only ones.
I'm not trying to step on Dom here. I'm just simply telling you that the fact that we're still talking about this 3 weeks later, it shows you that it's a really close call. You can argue both sides of it. And it's obviously a huge play, and we'll all remember it. I feel badly for Steve, who pitched his heart out all season, was in line for the MVP and Cy Young and everything that, at his age. And all I can say is we'll be back next year and we'll take care of business then.
Yeah, and I also want to mention, Glenn, once you mentioned you're a lawyer, which I didn't know, I Googled you, and I see that you're a highly sought-after speaker.
Podcaster.
No, speaker, and you didn't, the fee that we're giving you is probably less than your usual fee on the lawyer.
Yeah, I just want my trophy with the actual bat that's not broken from last year, if you can get me one of those.
You gotta talk to Phil.
Can we just clarify? I got a lot of hate from Archie saying the trophies are too small. I'm like, Archie, this is our first year with the league. You should have seen the trophies last year. Our bats aren't broken yet.
Those weren't trophies. Those were like the toppings on a wedding cake.
Ellie,
Like
and
little
Yosef, do
figurines.
you ever get your trophy? So how's your trophy doing? Is it still in one piece?
I'm aware.
All
Archie
right.
sleeps with this trophy, I heard. Is that true?
So we've done better. Dave. We're only going up.
Yes, Archie knows how to push the buttons. That's one thing I've learned about him. I also have to give a shout out. I discovered that Glenn's sister-in-law, Erica Kestenbaum Zuckerman, in case she's listening, I went to graduate school with her, and we found out
she's listening to this? She's not listening to this. Are you crazy?
She better be. But I told her that if I had
want to
known
hear 40 minutes of talk about a double play turned at second base, all right, fair enough.
If I had known she was related to Jewish softball royalty, I would have had more respect for her in graduate school. So, but anyway, Glenn, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you, guys. Congratulations on your well-deserved almost win. But seriously though, these two teams are so closely matched. And all I can say is that if you go back to the podcast I was on last time, I told you it's going to go 3 games because, we hold these guys in high regard. They're talented 1 through 10. If they got rid of some of their internal politics, they probably would have swept us. But we took advantage of that. And all I can say is we'll be back.
Oh, baby.
Looking forward,
Awesome.
Glenn.
Thanks, Glenn, for coming on.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, what a pleasure always having Glenn with us. Jewish softball royalty. What do you guys think?
Good hitter.
Great hitter. I mean, first guy I've ever seen actually pull ass with power ever.
I was going to ask you, Ellie. I was actually going to ask you before Glenn came on. By the way, Glenn's off now. The screen looks frozen to us, but I think it'll look regular when we watch back the podcast. How did Glenn hit last night versus Ash? I'm always very curious for that matchup. But what was the?
He did hit. He hit very well. I got to talk to him about his hands. How does he have such fast hands? I don't know, but yeah, he's next level.
When you say his, what movement specifically are you referring to?
I don't know. It's his ready to fire position to already firing. I think it's as fast as I've ever seen it. It's big league almost. I've watched a lot of baseball in my life. Yeah, it's legit. It's legit.
Yeah, it's
There's no
crazy.
other way to
Glenn
put
had similar. It's off me that a few weeks
I
ago
would
he
have
had a
caught the
bomb.
ball he hit, but sadly the lights at Woodmere Park 1 are a little bit low, so they got in the way. But
HSL would never.
during the day I catch that ball every time.
During the HSL Fall League, North Woodmere's lights will be pristine. Promise you that.
Ugh. We got to make games during the day.
Games during the day. All right, so let's get back to our discussion from before. Mr. Yosef was telling us about his experience at OBBL, 14 years old, breaking into that circuit. Then he gets picked up for a TNEC team. Then he gets – where do you link up with Ellie? In TNEC?
No, that would be in Muncie. After I got married.
We never linked up, actually. We never played together until RSK.
Yeah.
Okay, so then you play in Muncie. Somebody gets you started in Muncie, and then you end up in HSL this season?
Then I followed Ellie. Ellie basically added me to the team and said, "You're playing," and I said, "Okay, I guess I'm playing." But along the way, we've had a few interesting stops, especially one in Camp Romemu. They say Avi Edelman has dropped off a lot since he can't do the illegal Romemu pitch where you run up 15 feet before you pitch. But I do have a great Avi Edelman story, which is the first time I ever played against him. So I was playing on a random team. We were playing against the Romemu staff team. And
the greatest Romemu staff team of all time, by the way. Don't play down the Romemu staff.
Who's playing for?
A random group of people. It was on a Friday.
It wasn't random. It was we played the Muncie All-Star team 3 times. Okay, let's get this clarified here. Yosef played on one.
The only guy from Muncie on that team.
No, impossible. Which team did you play on?
I don't know. Some random team. It was some random team.
Okay.
No,
right.
it was from a Friday Baseball Mountains chat. It was
okay.
There wasn't anything really going on. You were pitching.
Well, we were 34. We were 34-11. My 4th summer's pitching, so I guess this is one of the 11. But okay, I just want to.
Must have been. But anyhow, so Avi mows through the first 4 guys. Now I've never played with any of these guys. They've had me 7, and first 2 guys get on. I come up, two on, nobody out, and Avi winds up, takes his 30-foot sprint forward to the mound, and fires his hardest fastball. And if you know the Romemu field, I hit one over the left field fence, over the 3 basketball courts that are over there, halfway down the hill, and the look on Avi's face was absolutely priceless. I think I doubled twice off him that game and then singled the other way. I think I went 4 for 4 if I'm not mistaken, and I'm pretty sure we blew them out. And then Avi joins the Muncie League, and the first time that I played against him again, I was hitting him all over the place. And he finally gets me to pop out to second base or shortstop. Screams, "Let's go!" And then says, "I finally got him out." Well, he didn't know my first name, but he's screaming at the top of his lungs, "I finally got him out." So that was my introduction to Avi Edelman.
That's the only inaccuracy of that story, by the way, which is all very true. I very much am a believer in. I am not scared to say who hits me really well and who I think hits me really poorly. Yoseph does hit me really, really well, but I never ran up. I don't do that. I never ran up. I know there's. No, I didn't. I did not run up. I'll tell you a guy. Nope. I'll tell you a Romu pitcher who ran up. Eliezer Kiffel, when he was in Romu, he pitched for a couple summers. He ran up. He took a good 3-4 feet to the mound, and there's a reason why he can't pitch anymore.
If you know anything about Eliezer Kiffel, he certainly did not run up. He may have walked slowly up.
He took 4 long strides up to the mound. No, but Eliezer Kiffel is the shortstop on my Muncie team. He lives in Muncie. He's a great football quarterback as well. I never ran up. I could go to the grave with that. But yes, I do remember that game where Yosef rocked me 4 times. I think it was 2 home runs actually, not 1. I think.
It may have been wrong. Oh, you're right. There was one to center field. You're right.
Yes, we were 34-11 in our 4 summers. 34-11. 3 of our biggest blowout losses came to that team. We played this Muncie All-Star team with Yitz Greenbaum on the mound twice out of the 3 times. We crushed them once. We beat Yitz once when Yitz had a complete meltdown because he said the umpire was horrendous, which the umpire was horrendous.
They always are. Well, one thing, they always are horrendous in Romu. Always. It's the worst umpiring I've ever seen in my life.
I was there 2 nights ago.
Strikes are on the floor. It doesn't matter where they are. It's a strike if you're against Romu.
I was there 2 nights ago. We dominated, and we were banned from ever coming back for a night activity game because apparently the Romu staff team is so weak now that the old timers are so much better. Anyways, yeah, it's always home cooking for the camp team. Anyways, the third time we got blown out by them, so that was the second. So we got blown out by the Muncie All-Star team, by Yosef Grossman team, and actually Steve Pollen brought a team. We were actually 7-0 one summer, and I was riding high, and everyone in Romu, Avi Edelman, king of pitching, best in the world, and Steve Pollen brings his team with a lot of these 5 talents, bomber guys, and we go down like 12-3 in the second inning. It was one of the most depressing. Then Steve leaves the pitching mound to the second inning. It was like one of the most biggest bushas that we've ever been through. Anyways, 34-11, the most dominant Romu team ever in the history of camp. We could close that conversation out at that. Oh, also, so Yitz Greenbaum, commissioner of the MSL, which I'm sure we'll get into, Ellie and Yosef's main league that they play in. Ellie's the proud broadcast commentator of the MSL broadcast booth with the nice chair sponsored by who? No, we won't say it. We got to pass.
He's got a sponsor, so you got it.
Yeah. So we'll get into that. When I got into the MSL actually and started playing in Muncie, me and Yitz, I want to say hated each other. We didn't get along at all because Yitz knew me as that loud, full of it camp kid who dominated in Romu and thinks he's something because he could pitch really well against a bunch of kids. So that first summer, I remember I was actually going back to play Romu. The first summer I wasn't in camp. I joined the Muncie team, and me and Yitz were pitching against each other that night. I was pitching the first 5 innings, and in the second inning, Yitz is barking at me from the dugout saying, "This isn't camp, Adam. This isn't camp." I start screaming back at him "We beat you!" He's like, "No, you didn't. We did. It was terrible." It was a whole back and forth. And I remember before I left the camp to go, I left in the 5th inning. I needed to get there on time. It was a 6:30 game. I needed to get there for the 8:30 night activity. I went over to Yitz at the mound. I'm like, "Yitz, listen, I don't want to keep on doing this." He's like, "Yeah, don't worry about it." And then Yitz and I, should have made it to the championships in RSK until a couple of bad calls made us lose to my former team. Anyways, that's all on that.
So, Yosef, why don't you share with us some of your different experiences between the different leagues? It sounds like you've played in a wide variety of places. You're highly engaging, as I know. Well, certainly at Kiddish after you've had a few drinks you are. That's when I got to know Yosef.
Unfortunately, it was just coffee today, but what can you do? Not everybody can be Ellie Raice. What can I say? Yeah. It's a really interesting dynamic because every league has something unique about it. But I haven't played in any of the Southern Jersey leagues, so none of the Deal leagues or Lakewood or any of those places.
The LBA league is shit from what I hear. Just kidding.
It's look. I don't necessarily have very strong opinions about leagues that I haven't played in, but when a pitcher of Menachem Diamond's caliber gives up 20 earned runs, you have to take a look at the league, not the player. That's a joke, in my opinion.
There was a game, Dave, last 2 weeks ago. Raice is actually on Diamond's team.
3 weeks ago. Already at this
3
point.
weeks ago. Where they're playing Uri Adler, my former RSK team, who we won't bring up anymore, and I shouldn't have brought up in the first place. And it was a 21 to 19 final score in that game.
This is an LBA?
Yes.
Which to me just sounds like Little League. That doesn't sound fun.
It was a wild game. It should have been on video. It was that wild.
So I'm going to start with the farthest north league, which is the OBBL. It used to be a pretty solid league, and I know we've talked about Mr. Lobo ad nauseum, but he was part of the A division, and those teams were really good. Ash still pitches for Beaver Lake. That team's always very, very good. You had the Lobos, you had Beaver Lake, you had Moonlight, which was the Sea Wild team. They're always really good teams, and one thing that
by the way, had the biggest hit of the game against us last night. Sea Wild, professional lefty hitter.
Not everything comes back to your most recent game. I just want to put that out there. But basically, you had some really good teams. There were some really, really good teams, and one of the things that they did a really good job of was they would go to the sleepaway camps, pick up the best players on the sleepaway camps, and add them to their OBBL team. So what happened was the league just kind of split. You had 2 divisions of really, really good teams, and then 4 divisions of terrible teams. So slowly, teams started coalescing, and you started having fewer divisions but a better league. Then eventually, the whole league just fell apart. I think a lot of the middle age group now does not play softball. We'll call it the 35 to 45 range. A lot of them just don't play, and so a lot of these teams just kind of fell apart. I blame golf and pickleball, but that's neither here nor there. So it used to be a really good league, but now has kind of fallen into.
This is OBBL.
This is OBBL. They actually just had a resurgence recently where they have three divisions now, which is nice. It's good that they have that. But overall, the league has kind of fallen apart. It's very much a beer league, recreational league.
What team does Jonas and Lowinger play on? Doesn't he also play in OBBL?
No idea.
Him and Andy Applegrad play together.
Are the Bungle? I have another explanation. I feel like upstate New York used to be more of a staple. I feel like people travel to more locations. Still huge.
Try
okay.
going up to 17 on a Friday, you'll never do it again. It's pretty huge.
Well, demographically, it's probably not a hard question to answer. Are there as many bungo colonies now as there were 25 years ago?
More. Very few of them have shut down, and they've built so many new ones.
Houses also. Now it's permanent.
Yeah.
Now they own up there. So now not only they're in the summer, they're on Sukkot, Pesach, Shavuos.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a fun league, but there was never really much going on. The one major highlight that we had was the Hit for Hash tournament, which was definitely an interesting one. They tried something that no other tournament has tried, which was they made baseball cards for the players. You could put your name in and a short bio and all kinds of stuff. It was definitely interesting. Seawell hit the farthest ball I think I've ever seen hit on with a clincher.
Yoseph, do you still have your baseball card?
No, they never sent me mine.
Wow, because I was interested in purchasing it, but I guess if it's not available.
What can you do? I still have the picture, though. It was a very nice swing. I will tell you that. It was in the home run derby, actually, over there, which is actually where I met Yanky Itzkowitz for the first time. But anyhow, then you have the Muncie League. In my opinion, it's probably the hardest league to be a really good player in. And I'm sure Ellie could speak to this because he's played in all the leagues. But because of how big the field is, and how good the average player is, it's very hard to be a great player in this league. You're playing on a humongous field with a regular clincher, no gold balls. None of the pitchers throw particularly hard, and so because they don't throw hard, you have to do a lot of the work as a hitter in particular. You have a lot of ground to cover as a fielder, and then in my opinion, the biggest thing is you can be a really good hitter and a really good fielder. If you can't run, you can't play in this league. Because the really good teams have guys who can steal third. It's the only league that plays with stealing. So you can steal third, and that's a huge asset to have on any team. You're allowed to run from second to third. You're allowed to steal. But what it also means is that you can't have, a terrible player who catches for you. You have to have a good catcher. And so it's probably I've always said that I don't think the best players in the Muncie League are the best players in the From World, we'll call it, but the average player is better than the average player in any other league.
And to that point, the infield is a really big infield. So like a hitter like me, I consider myself an above average hitter. I'm a very solid hitter. In Muncie, I struggle because you have to get it out there with speed off the bat and get into gaps. Because if you hit it with anything less than speed, the ball's gonna die at the end of the infield, and either the infield will get it or you shorten up your outfield and you're hitting it right at an outfielder. It's a tremendously large.
In the MSL, I think.
Do I have to say it out loud in the public?
Oh, baby, pull it up. Let's go.
Well, I'll make people feel better. I mean, when Avi plays, at least in the Wednesday night league, it's called a B league. Some people call it B league. He hits about 650. I've kept this stat, so then hopefully that boosts your confidence a little bit, Avi.
Yeah, I would be
Raice is
shocked.
like, what do you say, Ellie?
I'd be shocked if he's hitting over 375 this year.
Last year I hit 345. This year I'm actually
That's
at
a no,
380.
basically. He's not hitting over 375.
This year I'm at 380 right now. But I only play like 8. Yeah.
Ellie, what do you hit? What do you hit in that league?
It depends. I had a little bit of a slow start. Right now I'm stuck in the 450s, but I like to be over 500 at least in these type of leagues.
Yosef, how about you? What do you hit in the MSL?
Oh, in a typical year, I usually hit somewhere between, if it's a good year, I'll hit around 600. If it's a bad year, I'll hit in the low 400s. This year, because of babysitting duty, my wife is a nurse. She works at night, so I miss almost all the night games. The only games that I play are against the better team. That's the only time I show up. So when I know we have a game in hand, I usually don't try to get babysitting. So this year, I think I'm batting in the high 370s, somewhere in that range.
So Adelman's better than you, basically.
I mean, in his mind, for sure.
Yeah.
That's definitely the case.
Quick, 1 second. Ellie and Yosef are two totally different hitters than I am. Like I intentionally don't hit for power, which works in almost which works in almost every single field. The one field that my strategy has a very hard time working is the MSL because of how big that infield is. It's a huge infield.
I think it's more than that, though. I think also it's because the average fielder in the infield is a good fielder.
That's right.
That is
No
all,
holes over there.
I guess my point is like a line drive that would get through the right side or the left side in a typical field would be one hop to a deep second baseman in MSL.
Yeah, you have to do a lot more work here, unless you do the swinging bunt strategy.
And another thing with the stolen base at second, you have to be. Again, Steve Powell. Last night, Steve was barking. Okay, I won't go back to last night. Anyways, another thing with the.
That was a great call. That was a great call.
Nothing else. I have improved the podcast in that way.
Another thing,
I never even realized that.
Another thing with the MSL is that as a pitcher with a runner on second, it's a totally different game. If it's a 1-2 count, you can't just throw junk or your craziest stuff because you throw it behind the catcher, the guy gets a third. So besides for the fact that you need to be a good base runner and a good catcher, you have to be a better pitcher, and you have to be much more aware of the runner on second. It's another.
I will let it be told.
Also, why guys don't throw that hard. They don't just fire at will because if you miss the catcher, you're giving up a base.
Right.
It should be known, though. Yeah, it's not easy to steal third there, meaning if you go straight steal third base, I don't care how fast you are. I've seen the fastest guys out there. You will get thrown out if it's a normal catch and throw.
Yeah, the bases are far from each other, and you can't leave till after the release, and we do have some umpires who are looking to call you out. So you got to be very, very careful.
I will say we have to. This is required, and Ellie, we're going to have to clip this, but we have to mention Gitzy Rosen, best catcher in the MSL. You do not run on that guy.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. What percentage of third base steal attempts work, and what?
I would say 60-40.
Depends.
I think a lot of guys get thrown out.
Depends on what?
If it's on a straight steal, yeah, it really depends. On a pass ball, it's 100%. You never throw down if it's a pass ball. But if it's a straight steal, I would say probably 60% of the time they get it because the only guys who do it are the speed guys. But I've seen, Levi Chimowitz is one of the fastest guys in the Muncie League. Saw him get thrown out on a straight steal. Was not a great catcher, but just it's really, really far.
Has Donnie Cohn ever gotten thrown out going to third base straight steal?
I don't know. Not this year.
I can remember. There have been a lot of close calls, though. And when you have umpires like Ben there, they're not getting out there to see if he's actually out.
Right.
So, Yosef, what can So you've shared with us about OBBL, about Muncie. Now we're going to move a little bit west into Teaneck. My wife's from Teaneck. What can you tell us about Teaneck?
So I haven't played that many games in TNEC, but the main thing you need to know is that they play with the yellow ball. So you could imagine if guys are hitting the ball hard with a regular clincher and they hit it really hard with a gold ball, you could imagine how hard they hit it with the yellow ball. And I can tell you the most terrifying experience I've ever had playing softball was playing the infield in the TNEC League. I mean, a bunt would come at you at 100 miles an hour. It's very scary. But every time I've played there, the game has been like that LBA score, 2019 or something like that. Ellie told me recently, how many did you put up in the first inning?
I think we put up 18 in the first half. Top of the first.
Sounds very dangerous, honestly.
Extremely.
It's dangerous if you can hit the ball, but the bat restrictions are very serious. And it's a lot of older. It's the league that the most older players play. I mean, they probably have the most guys over 50 in that league of any league. Maybe even over 60.
More than the Monday Night League? More than the Monday Night League?
For sure. Not a question. It's an older league. Not a lot of all the young guys are all wearing YU gear. It's like it's basically either you play YU baseball or you're old. And then there's me. But,
yeah, their problems are twofold. Number one, there's no pitching in that league to speak of. It's basically batting practice. And then
Levine, I think, pitches in that league.
You know Ronnie
Levine, a high school classmate of mine.
Oh, really? Where did you guys go?
TABC, Storm.
The Storm. So I think he's been pitching in that league, right?
He was actually undefeated till like last week, but yeah. I didn't get to play that game against them, but yeah.
And then their other, and I think this is the much bigger issue, is the fields. The fields are a disaster there. I mean, I came in, I think I was 17, and someone left a fastball over the middle, and I hit one onto the street in, I don't remember which park. But
Sagamore?
You shouldn't be hitting a ball onto a street in recreational Sunday morning softball. It's just not a thing that should be happening. So, and that only happens if you have weak pitching with a yellow ball. It was fun, but I wouldn't do it again. Ellie keeps asking me every Sunday if I want to come play. Number one, 8 o'clock in the morning.
That actually raises a really interesting point for you two guys who play in a whole lot of different leagues. There's this discussion about a rec league versus a non-rec league, and how do you guys understand the difference? Because I certainly don't at this point.
So I think there's only two types of from softball, we'll call it. There's the leagues, which are all recreational. No one takes it that seriously. Even the most serious, even the Bombers of the world don't take it that seriously. And then there's the tournaments, which that's a different world. Those everybody's taking the seeding games, I guess, but when you get into a tournament and you get into those bracket games, that's about as serious as you can get. So I don't think
I should have seen Yoseph Grossman after I struck him out looking in the extra inning of the first ever RSK tournament and beat the Diamondstein Yoseph Grossman team to win the first ever. Why am I not
remembering this? I know you got me out. I don't think you struck me out.
I struck out Yosef looking on an inside corner pitch. Do you remember your reaction to that? Is
that where I threw the bat? I don't remember.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
It was one of the
craziest
things.
It was in the championship. I thought it was before that.
Bottom seven.
That was championship. I was eating. I came back to the tournament. I was eating food. I was watching that. I was like, there wasn't that many people there at that point. It was nice.
All I know is the brutal call. It was a ball. It was a ball.
It was a bad call. Yes, it was.
3 straight of the same pitch.
Yeah.
Oh, was it called strike 3?
Yeah, it was a called strike 3. You could tell him. So he just said it. It was the bottom of the 7th. It was a tie game. We were exhausted. Diamondstein was pitching for them. Steve Pollen was actually on that team playing, I think, second base or something, or maybe not pitching.
No, he wasn't pitching. He pitched the first 4 games.
So it was tied at 3, I think, in the bottom of 7th. In my mind, Ariel, if you're watching, I do have a winning mentality. I was ready. I was content. I'm like, they're coming up with their 3, 4, 5 hitters. I think you were batting 3, Yosef. You were leading off the inning. Yeah. It was tie game, bottom of the 7th. I'm exhausted. I'm like, if they walk us off ready to win the championship, fine. They're the team to beat. And after Yosef struck out looking and he bombed that bat to the fence, the whole place was dead. What just happened? And the next 2 guys go on to get out. We ended up putting up 4 runs.
No,
the next
I think Hank DeWeck hit a single through the left side after that. But, yeah.
Oh, he did? Okay. We ended up getting out of it. We ended up scoring 4 runs in the top of the next inning, and they scored, I think, 2. And then Menachem Diamondstein actually grounded out to end the game. and I will forever go down in the books of RSK as the first ever champion. Even though
All
now
I
I
know
can't.
is I was hitting probably about 750 in that tournament, and the umpire basically just took the bat out of my hand. I think all three of them were balls, if we're being honest.
They're all on the inside part of the plate. I'll put it that way.
I don't think any of them were on the plate. But anyhow, that's neither here nor there. My point is that
So I'm curious about this. The tournaments are more competitive than what we
significantly,
call A-leagues in this area.
yeah, different sport.
So that's very interesting to me because Avi, I've only gotten into softball in the last few years, and Avi's always schlepping out to these tournaments. I'm like, who wants to play softball for 9 hours straight in 100 degrees? And I guess the answer is that the level of competition is much higher. And
It's not only that; it's all baseball junkies. It's all guys who just want to play.
I call it the Ganeden for a softball guy. If you love softball, this is like the epitome. This is like the eclipse. It's like the highest point.
I don't think it would work as a league because you can't keep that intensity for such a long period of time. It's just not possible. Which is why I guess we refer to the leagues as recreational leagues. They're not, there's nothing serious about them.
Yep.
So you were saying that so there's rec leagues and there's tournaments. To you, there's no in between.
Yeah.
I guess you haven't played in the Legacy League yet, then.
I have not played in the Legacy League yet. Although I did watch the Legacy League Home Run Derby, and I'll be honest, I would have won that left-handed.
But Yosef, you can't be that much of a.
Sorry. Before you get to your question, if you want to increase the number of home runs hit in the Home Run Derby, just have Avi pitch.
You're being a little disingenuous. I'll tell you why. You mentioned that the quality of the OBBL has fallen a lot over the years. That is probably similar to a Legacy League. So there is another type of softball in.
It's still recreational. It's just about talent. Then I'm not talking about the talent of the league. I'm talking about because we have in the monthly league we have some top tier talent and we have some bottom tier talent. So there are teams that are going to win 1, maybe 2 games a year, and they serve 2 functions. Number one, one thing I think they did really well this year was they did a weighted schedule, so they all played each other with a lot more than they played the top teams, which led to a better league overall because those games actually mean something.
No 0-20 or 0-18 teams.
Yeah, but then also, and I think this is the biggest thing, it's a breeding ground for younger guys to get onto a team. If they're not a superstar, but they're a good player, they'll get onto one of these teams, and then a better team will see them, pick them up, and then they move up. So it gives people an opportunity to play, to show that they can play. It's a good showcase. But also bottom line is you need teams like that. Not every team can have, great players top to bottom. Not every team can be a King Ventures,
Okay, Ellie, how would you answer the same question about the rec league versus the non-rec league?
So it's very similar. I agree with Yosef on many points. I think TNEC also is more of a legacy league to a certain extent, but it's the same thing. It's a weighted top-bottom, but they don't weight the schedule. So TNEC, you play against teams. Like we played against a team twice in a row, and we beat them, I think, 60-10. Which...
Did you say 60?
I think it was 60-10 in 2 weeks. 2 7-inning games. Back-to-back Sundays. It was definitely not competitive, but I enjoy softball no matter what. I don't really care if it's competitive or not. I love it when it's nail biting. I love it when it's not nail biting. It's fun either way.
Dave, Ellie plays in every single softball league in the New York, New Jersey area.
So
not yet in the deal leagues. Soon, Sam Sutton. Soon.
Are you on the waiting list?
No, I'm not on the waiting list. I've been asked to play, but I'm not on any waiting list.
Even if Ellie wants to join, he ain't getting in anytime soon. He's got to.
So you underestimate the power of Hank Dweck.
Yeah, I think you guys don't realize. I think we'll figure it out.
So wait, but okay, that brings up another point. You mentioned Sam Sutton. What are your guys' thoughts on a draft league?
I'm very pro it. I love the BYOB, what he was saying. I'm not into the bring your own boys. As I'm known in Muncie, I switch teams as much as I can. I'm always switching teams.
Why is that?
Because I love playing with many. I like meeting new people. I like playing with new teams. I like feeling what do these guys like to bring? What's the energy they bring to the table here? There's so much different things coming out every single team. They do things differently.
Well, for Sunday HSL next spring, my team's looking for a stud left fielder. We heard you had a couple hiccups in the first championship game, but besides for that,
Yeah.
we'd love to have you.
Well, I will say that the wind was blowing out like I've never seen in my life. Was not ready for that. I didn't take any BP out there, so I didn't see the ball off the bat at all. So after that first fly ball, I was like,
you didn't answer the question. Dave's trying to recruit you for the Sunday
right. Well,
morning.
the thing is, are you able to play in Legacy and Titan at the
No.
same time?
No, you're not. You're not, Dave. What are you thinking by
Also,
asking
now
Ellie?
that
I
you-
think it's time Ellie took his talents to the I think it's time Ellie took his talents to the Legacy League.
I don't know. I don't know if that'll save for me if RL Cohen's joining the Titan League and I'm joining the Legacy League.
No, but Yossi, there's no way Yossi Kaufman's letting him go. He's the only skinny guy on our team.
It would be
Yeah,
also
Yossi,
rough. I'm looking
Yossi
to,
was given.
Yeah, Glenn Zuckerman. I mean, he's he just beat me out for the batting title. I mean, pretty healthily, but it would be pretty pansy of me to go down to the Legacy League just to take that batting title.
So we got a couple of minutes left. Yosef, we got to get into the HSL. We got to hear both of your critiques. We got to hear the good stuff, the bad stuff, and the ugly.
So I'll tell you the one positive thing. I did not play the Bombers during the regular season, and that was a really, really good series. It was lower scoring than I thought it would be. Ellie and
I predicted it. I predicted it, and I would have gotten Game 3 right. It was I predicted Bombers winning 2-1 in Game 3, and I was a ground ball to third away from calling it the whole series.
Putting aside Avi Edelman's feelings on this, Ellie and I have both had a lot of success against Steve in particular, which just for whatever reason it worked out that way. But we've both had a lot of success against Steve.
Steve praised both of you very highly when he was on the podcast both times.
Yeah, I did see that. I appreciate it. Steve's great.
But we've both had a lot of success, and I just assumed that the rest of our team. I mean, there are some really, really good hitters on our team. Their field played really, really well across the entire season and across the entire series, and we did not hit as well as I thought we should have. I wish I had played Game 3. Who knows, how it manifests. But I hit Steve particularly well in those first two games. So I just assumed it was going to be high scoring, but it really, really was not, which was good. I like when you have a tight defensive game. There are some solid teams coming up, and you can see the formation of some pretty good teams. Give them a little seasoning, give them pick up a couple of guys here and there. There are a couple of teams that could compete for a championship. And then, as with every league, there are bottom teams, and those teams are not going to contend for a title. But things flip around very quickly. I've been in the Muncie League long enough to see some of the best teams fall apart, and I've seen some of the worst teams pick up a couple of guys and instantly become contenders. So I think it has the makings of a good league. There's one major problem, and unfortunately, there's nothing you guys can do about it. And no, it's not that Avi's the commissioner. I promise. It's the location. One of the nice things that we have in Muncie is that guys from Passaic can drive in. Guys from Teaneck can drive in. People if they're up in the mountains, they can come down during the summer. It's more accessible. Getting out there is tough. It's not an easy thing, and that limits the pool that you can pull from. And also, it's been around for a while, and so there are established guys who are set into a team and are not going to be leaving. And I can imagine that might be difficult as well to have the turnover that you want and not the turnover you don't want.
Mm-hmm.
Right, that makes sense.
What areas of improvement, Yosef?
Fire Avi.
Which, by the way, I think, which has been getting very much overlooked and talking about the Titan League, I think Avi Edelman has a pretty competitive team himself in the Titan League. No, I feel like it's always King Ventures, the Bombers, and all these other new teams that are coming up. What happened to my team?
I'll be real with you, and I'm going to be blunt. No.
What do you mean?
The team that you brought against us in the playoffs, we spotted you 5 innings and still beat you. We didn't wake up until the 5th inning, and
we were at a 2. First of all, we were at a 2-0 game.
Concern. No, my point is not the particulars of the game. My point is there was zero concern on our side.
Right. Well, we were missing Ari Moskovic and Moshe Zinn, the two best players.
Teams do lose games that way. Teams do lose games that way, and interestingly, if you think about it, the when we had this podcast about before the series, 3-game series versus 1-game series, I said I think the 3-game gives the Ventures a big advantage because it lets them wake up. Bombers could have, the Bombers won the first game. Maybe, it sounds like you guys have a certain approach that takes you a little while to wake up, which might not, always serve you the best. I don't know.
Well, I don't know if it's all of us.
Game.
I don't know if it's all of us. It's really just Archie waking up.
I was about to say Archie.
8:30 game, he wakes up at 8:26. So that definitely plays a role, especially when he's your 3-hitter. But no, the truth is, it's kind of the nature of the beast. If you have a team that hasn't really played together much, and each guy individually is very talented, it's going to take time. You can't get fired up the same way that you would if you were a cohesive group.
Correct.
We are going to win the championship this year.
Next year.
Are you taking odds, Ellie? We got odds on that?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because Javi just won the Time raffle, so he's got money to blow.
It's true. You might be able to pay some players.
We show up with Zin and Moskovic. That semifinal game was a different game.
We still blow you out.
First of all, again, it was 2-0 until the 5th inning, and a guy dropped a pop-up, and then Ed Younger did a 3-run home run.
It really doesn't. It doesn't matter. We were threatening the entire game, and that's with Ash popping up to you 16 times in a row.
Yeah, because I own Ash.
Before we go,
I don't say that you own Ash. I saw him hit one light tower power at Woodmere 2 against you.
That was the only hit he's ever gotten off to me.
What was
the second time was misplayed. First time was a tremendous shot.
A home run and 2 triples in that game.
Yeah, but 2 of them were misplayed. One was a legit shot.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Dave, are they underestimating my team?
Well, I think these guys come with a certain swagger, a certain cockiness. They came within 1 out of losing to the Bombers, and Ellie Raice described them as cute. This is what you're up against. They've got confidence for miles, and you got to beat them to put them in their place a little bit. You know what I mean? Until otherwise proven, they deserve everything they're bringing.
Point taken.
That's the way I look at it.
I mean, Avi, your darn to let's go ratio was very, very much in our favor in that game.
Yoseph, what a call. It's very funny. So Yoseph, quickly. You have 3 seconds. You have 5 seconds to answer. Okay?
Okay.
Big spot in the game. Raice or Archie at the plate?
Are there runners on base?
Yes.
Then I want Archie.
Ooh.
And there's a reason for it. Archie has more power. Raice, if the bases are open, I know he's gonna gap one and he'll end up on second or third. So I want the bases clear for Ellie. If there's runners on, I want Archie driving them in.
That's a little strange.
Think about it. Imagine you're on the mound, right? And a guy comes up, big spot, and instead of it being grounder through the middle, and he's on first. I
feel like Ellie's going to get himself out there.
I feel like Ellie will get himself to second or third, regardless of where he puts the ball.
Oh, you mean you don't want to waste Race's at bat in the lineup?
I want him leading off. I'll put it that way. I want Archie with runners on base.
No, that's not answering the question.
This is a cop-out answer.
Bases loaded. I'll say the question over again. Okay. Bases loaded, 2 outs, down by a run, bottom of the ninth. You need somebody up. Who do you want?
Archie. Okay. You won't find a bigger fan of Ellie Raice than me, but the thing that makes Ellie special, meaning there are a lot of guys who are fast, good fielders, good hitters. The thing that makes Ellie special is his base running.
So, Yosef, any tips you can give to Ellie to improve on his hitting? It sounds like there are a couple of important deficiencies.
I will quote Stephen A. Smith on this one. Stay off the weed.
Okay, next question. Daniel Ash or Justin Kaufman?
Tough one. Give me some context here. Are you talking about as a pitcher overall?
No, somebody you want to get a beer with. No, kidding.
Yeah, because then it's Yossi Kaufman. It's not even close.
Wow.
Although if you ask Daniel Ash, I'm the greatest basketball player of all time. I just want to put that out there.
Say it again. What was that?
If you ask Daniel Ash, he's legally required to say that I'm the best basketball player of all time. Yeah. By his own admission.
So who do you want pitching a big game for you?
I'm going to say Ash because his margin for error is bigger than Kaufman. If Kaufman's on, he's going to keep you in the game regardless. But if you get a great Daniel Ash game, it doesn't matter who's on the other team. The game's over.
It's interesting. Okay. Best fielder on King Ventures. I know they're different positions, but you got to pick one.
That's a very tough question. It's between Stallis and Raice. I'm gonna say Raice because it's more impact plays, meaning I can get a guy who's 90% of Ari Stallis. I can't get a guy who's 90% of Raice.
Got it. Who's got the best personality on King Ventures?
Ooh.
Brutal question. Be wild. No, I'm kidding. I'm gonna go with Raice. He brings there's a joy of softball baseball that he brings. Very Savannah Banana, and I know he'll appreciate the reference.
It's good stuff.
I think if I have anything else.
Well, you said 5 questions. There's only 4.
I know. I'm struggling.
I'm waiting. Who's harder to hit off, Avi Edelman or a T?
Avi, you better beat these bastards next year.
Listen, I'm known for shutting down good lineups, by the way. I really am.
By who?
Well, last night we went to them for the podcast. Last night I went through the Lobos lineup like butter. The Offman's, Shia Weiss, Archie. These guys are top to bottom.
Finding out that I need to play more.
Yosef, I got a great question for you, and we're going to end with this in a minute. Who's your favorite Margolis? Since I know they're going to be watching.
That is a tough one. All right. Who do I like the least?
For sure.
I'll work that way. Oh, you know what I'm going to do? We're going to go with Ben Sion because he's in Israel, so no one can argue with that.
For those who don't know, Yosef davens in my cousin's shul. They have a shul in their basement in Haverstraw, New York. Great community, and me and Yosef figured out that we knew each other there. But anyway, so we're going to cap it at 4 questions because I've got a meeting in a couple of minutes. Once again, we'll give you a chance for final thoughts. But we're brought to you by AdMrt, which is a new business started by Jake Byrne. And Jake started Addictive Ads, and it's a very successful, prominent company. AdMrt connects advertisers with the businesses. So if you have a podcast, you have an event, you have something that's looking for advertising, there's no middleman. It's a marketplace where you post what you need and the advertisers come to you, or you could go to the advertisers. So that's AdMrt, and we're going to put out the graphic with it.
How could they reach out to find out more information on AdMrt?
I'm not sure. I'm actually not sure. We'll find out. It's
we'll attach that information.
We'll attach it. So any final thoughts from you 3 gentlemen?
Ellie, you want to lead off?
We didn't ask Ellie Raice any tough questions.
Ellie has a way of sliding into, I don't know.
Second base and taking out the second base. Oh, sorry, that was the beginning of the podcast.
No, that's Perlman. It's not me.
The last podcast also, we need to do a podcast with just Ellie Raice because he has a way of kind of hiding in the shadows.
Hey, listen, it's just the way it is. You guys, I don't really have uncertain topics. The Grossman's really going to cover them, we have the same perspective on a lot of things in softball.
Yeah, that's what I'm known for, covering ground.
Exactly. I cover the ground behind him.
I have a question for Ellie Raice. LBA or HSL?
Ooh.
Hold on, are we talking about HSL Florida or? Ooh. All right. Too soon? Yeah, too soon. Okay.
I will say,
Hollywood Hills is an up-and-coming community, so I know Shimon Freeman would never listen to a podcast, so don't get any ideas.
I wouldn't be so sure. I catch him looking at my WhatsApp statuses here and there.
Oh, baby. No, I'll tell you that the HSL it's got good fun, but Sunday morning leagues can't compete with 4 fields, all of them hitting from the same location out. 4 games happening at once. There's hot dogs. Like, they got a whole situation. It's LBA. I mean, listen, there's a reason why LBA is the powerhouse.
Give us 8 years. How long have the LBA been around for now? 8 years? 10 years? How long? What year is
this? You guys are a morning league. If you have Bengals, if you somehow had a complex with 6 fields and you had all of us playing in the same spot and we had breakfast, you had stuff, I hear you. But, you can't compete with Lakewood. Lakewood's got space. They got stuff we don't have.
We're a morning league for now. We're soon to be a full night league, and you never know. You never know.
When are the LBA games are at night?
Yeah. Mondays,
Got it.
Tuesdays, Wednesdays.
All right, I got to bounce, guys, so I'm going to head out. Thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. Yosef, it's a pleasure. Ellie, second round for
Pleasure.
you,
Always
also a
been good.
pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Yeah.